Welcome viewers for the second episode on the consumer rights. So in the earlier episode we made a discussion on the e-commerce. Now there are six types of e-commerce that happens, and out of those six we are going to concentrate on two of them, that is B2C, that is business to consumer e-commerce, and the consumer to consumer e-commerce, because these are the e-commerces where common man gets affected. And we I'm going to talk about the laws which try to help the common man into these circumstances. Let us get into the discussion on e-commerce. So when you take up the discussion on e-commerce, so let us take up the kinds of people who does business on these e-commerces. So the entities, the business houses which does the e-commerce business, they are called as e-commerce entities. And if you check these e-commerce entities, you find that there are three types of them. First one is the inventory e-commerce entity, then there is a marketplace e-commerce entity, and then finally there are sellers on this marketplace e-commerce entity. Now let us take up one by one and then move on to the discussion on their rights and duties. So let us take up the inventory e-commerce entity for the first. Now, inventory e-commerce entities are the entities who manufacture, own and sell their own goods. So they are not selling someone else's goods, like example of a parlay. So if the parlay starts an entity, e-commerce entity, and starts selling its product online, then it becomes inventory e-commerce entity. So Nike, the shoe company, and it sells its own product, it's an inventory e-commerce entity, and it has its own rights and duties. And when you talk about these e-commerce entities, they can be single brand retailers or the single brand retailers functioning in multi-channels. The multi-channels would be the usage of different technology to sell their product, and even social medias to sell their products. Next we move on to marketplace. So like the marketplace, like what we see in every city, this is also a marketplace, a virtual marketplace on the internet. Now here they use all the possible technology to communicate between the seller and the buyer. Digital network platform would be used, electronic network platform are used, information technology platform is also being put to utilization to make a business possible. Now they use artificial intelligence, they use algorithms, they use various technology so that the seller is visible to the buyer, and the seller is going to pay some part of the proceedings to this marketplace. So Amazon, Flipkart and various other marketplaces, they qualify to be these marketplace e-commerce entities. And this is the idea of this marketplace, is to provide or facilitate between the buyer and the sellers. And the final fellow is the seller on marketplace. Now he is a neighborhood retailer, maybe a grocery shop owner, or maybe some carpenter who wants his presence to be felt in the internet, in the virtual world. So he registers in the marketplace, and the marketplace provides a connectivity between the buyer and the service provider or the seller. So he is no more than a neighborhood retailer. So these are the three fellows who does the business on e-commerce. Coming to duties and responsibilities, first let us talk about common duties on all e-commerce entities. Now these are applicable to all of them irrespective of what they are. And then I'll move on to the responsibilities of marketplace separately. First, except those sellers, because they can be a common man, in all the inventory e-commerce entities in the marketplace has to be an incorporated company registered under Indian Companies Act. This is a mandatory requirement. They have to provide all the contact details on their website, email, fax, etc., and also communication about the grievance officer. Now this is an interesting point. No cancellation charges on their business is a law. It is not only a business practice, it is a part of legislation also. So they can't impose any cancellation charges. Now this is another important thing which used to happen often in the earlier time. When we were exploring the goods, suddenly we place an order for a purchase unknowingly. So this is done by a technology of automatic order placing. Now the law has prohibited this automatic order placing completely. So it has to be an explicit consent oriented purchase that has to be done. So that's why recently we have seen people receiving a call and confirming their purchase, because that's what the law is demanding. And grievance redressal mechanism has to be robust, strong and responsive. And then the refund. Now all e-commerce entities must have a refund policy, and the refund policy has to be explained properly on their website. So moving on to the marketplace. The marketplace must ensure that there are no false reviews about the product. So what happens is the seller disguises himself as a consumer and writes grave reviews about his own product and puts it as the review of the consumers. Now this is something which marketplace must avoid, and it is the responsibility of the marketplace. And even the sellers could be charged for giving false reviews. Now these are certain things that has to be mentioned by the marketplace clearly: return, refund, exchange, warranty, guarantee, delivery and shipment. So those are the things that has to be mentioned in that website. Not only false reviews, the marketplace must ensure honest advertisement. The details about the product should be provided honestly and properly. And regarding this, they have to take an undertaking from the seller before he starts business on their marketplace. Details of the seller needs to be registered with the seller and needs to be communicated to the buyer also. Late delivery is chargeable, is punishable, and compensation has to be paid for those late deliveries. And as usual, the unsatisfied customer should have a place to file a complaint in the marketplace as well as with the seller. So what happens when you file a complaint with this marketplace, maybe a Flipkart or an Amazon or maybe any other marketplace? They will generate a ticket number, and the ticket number is communicated to the consumer, and the same information is forwarded to the seller, the service provider, and then they facilitate the interaction between the seller and the buyer. So that mechanism has to be developed by this marketplace. So as a last slide, I want to talk about the convergence process, and I would dedicate one more episode on this convergence process. And this is a process initiated by the central government. This process is a grievance redressal process where you can redress your grievances without approaching to any authorities or without moving out of your house. It's a very beautiful process designed by the central government, where it is trying to bring out all the business houses under one platform so that the matter can be solved without much delay. So I will do this in the next episode. Thank you very much for listening to me, and I request you to subscribe, share, as well as recommend these videos to your friends. Thank you very much.